How's it going, everybody? It's your boy Anthony, aka 24 Days. We got
Angel
and
Samantha.
this is episode
Episode
6
6
of Path to a King.
Yes, sir.
So today's a very special one. We're going to be talking about Christianity. So if you get offended by religion, I'm not going to say click off. I still want you to watch this, but this is what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing we're going to say is we're going to be exposing the evil in the world. If you are a Christian and you do follow God, then you know that this world is run by a lot of evil people and there's a lot of evil things that are going on. So we're just going to give our perspective on it from a different place. So what I'm going to do is I'm a music artist, so I'm going to start with the music industry. So if you listen to the most popular music now, I know a lot of people listen to jazz, country, but the most popular music, hip hop, rap, pop, R&B, if you look at it over the years and how it's grown, you're going to see a huge difference from the early 2000s to now. Sex, drugs, and violence. Most of the songs right now on the Billboard charts have to have these three things or else they don't blow up. So if you are a Christian and you are a God-fearing person and you want to get closer to God, I'd say the number one thing you have to stop doing is listening to that type of music, because that type of music is purposely pushed on everybody. Another thing, if you do want to be an artist like me, you have to be careful of the music industry, because I'm not going to say too much on YouTube, but they do a lot of sketchy things. So that's my perspective on evil things happening with music. And you want to touch on it from something else?
Yeah, I'll touch on it from a relationship standpoint. Now in society, on both ends, men and women, they like to push the agenda that you don't need a partner, or if you do need a partner, or if you do have a partner, have multiple partners, and that's both the same for men and women. Because women are like, well, why do I have to stay with one man when I could go to multiple guys? Same thing with men. They're like, well, I could go with multiple women. But in the Bible, God wants you to have one partner and to be united with that partner. And and nowadays it's looked down upon. They're like, well, you've been with the same woman for 10 years. You're like, a lot of people be like, well, I have this many wives, or this is my body count, and it's like, I don't think that's something to necessarily brag about, because to me that just means you're making yourself easily available to multiple people, which is not good from any standpoint. You can look at yourself as a product. If you're a cheap product, everybody's gonna have you. But if you want to be a higher end product, like let's say Versace, right? Then not everybody can get their hands off, because it's extra expensive, top quality, and you'd rather be compared to Versace than to Reebok, right? Because everybody can get Reebok, it's so cheap. You'd rather be more exclusive and have more value and be open to less people, because not everybody deserves your full version.
It's the thing I actually want to add to that. So a lot of people, or another thing in the world that is pushed out a lot and encouraged is cheating. So I think there's a big difference between having the ability to cheat and not doing it, or having no ability to cheat. So there's a lot of people who brag about being loyal, but in reality, if they leave that person, nobody else is going to want them. So I think if you have the ability to cheat and you decide still not to cheat, then you should be loyal. And that's, I think, what makes like a real man, or somebody who's not listening to the world and cheating. And just because if you have the ability to be with multiple people, but you do decide to stay and decide with the right person, then that should be looked.
Yeah, it's like with anything in life. Like, you have the ability to do drugs, you have the ability to go drink your life away, but you can choose not to.
Mm-hmm. Is there any part of the world or anything that you think is evil that you wanted to talk about?
I think how dating is viewed now. I know Angel brought out the point of hookup culture, and I completely agree. I think that does no good to the guy or the girl. In the end, either the guy or the girl could end up feeling used, like they're just a product waiting to be used, and that's not true. Each individual has their own values that need to be cherished by, I believe, one person, by one partner, and to go off or even I know someone who has like a roster, right? And that to me is one, disgusting. And
Wait, what do you mean by a roster?
a roster. So we were talking to some friends, and he brought up, he's like, oh yeah, so and so has a roster, and the roster is a list of girls' names on this campus who they want to basically hook up with, or their end goal is to have sex with them. And that to me is disgusting. But it also doesn't help with that. In a way, hookup culture does promote that. It makes it easier to just like get with one person and then leave them. But you know, a person is meant to be who your partner you're going to be with. If you choose to be with someone, they're meant to be someone that you cherish, that you value, that you see them at their best, that you see them at their worst, and that you're able to be in this journey together, you know? And hookup culture promotes the use or the practice of just using and letting go. And it's like when people run away from the problems, they have a tendency of running away from the problems, you know? They have a problem there and like, oh, they'd rather not face it. And I'm not saying having a partner is a problem, but I'm saying that we don't learn to stick to the thick and thin with that, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you agree with all that?
I mean, I agree with like the whole roster thing. I think there's different ways to look at it, because if I'm being completely honest, every guy has a roster, but not in the same way that you described it, because there is guys that are like, oh, well, my goal is to have sex with these 10 girls, like you just said, right? But like, for example, for me and Anthony, I can speak for both of us, like there's certain girls that we find attractive, and we're like, you know, we're gonna talk to these girls, get to know them, but obviously our end goal is not to have sex with them. But it's kind of like, okay, out of all the girls at campus, this handful seemed attracted to us, and then once you get to know them, you know, one by one, you know, talk to them and
Is
see
it
where it
delete
goes
them
from
from the
there.
roster or move them up the roster?
Yeah, well, it's kind of just, well, that's not for me. It's just like if I'm talking to a girl and everything's going pretty well, then okay, I like.
Well,
her
like
vibes,
even
you know.
as girls, we'll talk like, oh, you know, this guy's pretty attractive. We'll
Yeah, you
go
see
to
something
the
like that.
DC. Yeah,
See,
but
that's
I'm not
understandable,
saying
but
like a roster where like literally
Yeah.
a friend that I know was number one, and like that's disgusting to
Yeah.
me.
No, yeah, I
like
agree.
I'm any guy who agrees with that, or woman, you know, stay 6 feet away from me.
No, I get that. That makes
Yeah,
sense
that,
for
that,
sure.
that part makes sense.
Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about that's really based on Christianity is why you need God. So we'll start with you, Angel. So say basically, why do you think people need God, and what has God done for you in your life that makes you think you can't and other people cannot live without Him, or at least should not?
Well, to be honest with you, that to me that's a really stupid question. That's like asking, why do I need water? Yeah, obviously, we need water to live. You need water to thrive as a human being, right? Same thing with God.
I'm gonna edit that out. Can't say my question was stupid.
Well, no, I'm just saying in general, that's a stupid question. Well, okay, let me rephrase it. That's a stupid question coming from a person who doesn't believe in God. Obviously, Anthony's asking the question to start the conversation, but like, for example, atheists or people that are on the edge of whether God is even real, to me that's a dumb question, because they say, well, like, oh, well, I haven't believed in God. He hasn't done anything for me, right? Well, I find it dumb because you need God in every aspect of your life if you truly want to be happy. You may be happy for moments, but God is always there. It goes back to like you're having a purpose. You need to have a purpose, and God gives you that purpose. God gives you a path to follow, and it makes you feel fulfilled. And obviously, you want to reach the eternal life and be with Him in heaven once you pass. So, and for me personally, God has got me out of hardship. Not even like life altering or life changing, but it's just certain moments where you hit rock bottom with yourself, where you're not happy with yourself, where you're not happy with your state of being, and it's like turning to God. It really does give you it really flips your whole paradigm of your life. You're like, you know what? Like, I could be so much more than this. I could be so much better than this. And since then, like, there's never been a point where I'm like devastated with myself. There's always a point in my time, a point in every day that I'm like, you know what? I could have done that a lot better. And it's like, and besides me pushing myself on my own, God, I want to please God too, and God is like, I know He's gonna always be behind me if He knows I'm trying to please Him and do the best in His eyes. So it's like I may mess up and I may be mad at myself, or I may be sad at myself or disappointed, but at the same time I'm like, you know what? Like, I trust in God, and God had me mess up for a reason, and that the reason is to be better, to learn from it, and to grow as a person. And that's why I think you need God. Like, you just need Him to provide for you, and you need Him as a rock in your life. Because when everything goes wrong and when everything goes good, He's always gonna be there. He's never gonna leave your side.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful message there. And I think that you can't give that long of an answer to a stupid question. Admit the question was good.
It was okay, but it's like we're all Christian here. If I were to
He
ask you,
admits
why
the
do you
question
need God?
was
We're
good.
like, well, no, duh, you need God because
I think it's a valid question to ask, and people who don't believe in God, like, why do you? I think it's a very common question, a valid one to ask. As believers, we know, like, for us it becomes like, well, how could you not? Right?
so
But
So admit the question was good.
like, okay, yeah, I guess from an outside point of view, but it's like from us, it's like we
Yeah.
all know
For
why.
us.
yeah, no.
Okay.
If
What are
I
your
were
thoughts?
to ask that question to my mom, she would be like, "What do you mean?" Like,
Yeah.
I think to me, why do I need God in my life, right?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
I was raised in church, but any true Christian knows that just because you're raised in church, that does not make you any closer to God. It's not until you make the decision yourself to acknowledge God as the only one who can save you, and the only one who will be there for you until the very end. And I didn't come into that realization until, I want to say, when I was 17. I was at a really bad point in my life, and there was so many ways to go. There's so many routes that I could have taken, but it's not until I came to God that I realized that He was the only way to go, and that He is my stronghold, and that He is my Father, and He a father is seen as someone who protects, someone who provides, and I believe that God is the only one who will be there for me. Now, having God in my life doesn't mean that there's going to be like no rocks, no bumps along the way. It just means that you don't have to face it alone. And I think that's the beautiful thing about believing in God and having God in your heart is, friends will ask me, how are you so easy to forgive? How do you not take things to heart? And I just say, well, I have God in my heart, and if He's able to forgive me and He's able to forgive so many things, how could I not forgive my neighbor for doing something? How could I not love them when God loved me first? So.
And what would you say, like, the biggest difference it's made in your life? So if somebody were to ask you, like, why would I need God?
Mm-hmm.
What difference can you say that it could make in your life and another person's life?
It makes fighting battles easier, and not because the battle itself gets easier, but because how do I word it? Not because the battle has changed, but the perspective and how you fight it has changed. If you enter a classroom unprepared, not having done your homework or whatever, well, that consequence is going to fall on you. But if you come prepared with your homework done, your laptop charged and everything, not only do you feel more confident, like you're ready to take on the day, but you're going to excel. You're going to do good, because as a believer, God has never lost a single battle, and
So
He
being
will
prepared
never.
and having like your laptop with you in charge is like having God in your life.
Yeah, and
Okay,
that's like
that
a
makes
student
sense, yeah.
way to view it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that example. That was good. Okay, so yeah, well, I think we're about to have somebody else interrupt us. So I think the reason that people need God, and that when I realized I need Him, because I think it was a very good question. Here's why. as I was a Christian, even after like I dedicated my life to God, I still had a lot of times where like I thought I can do things without God, and I thought like I didn't need Him in my life. But then I realized that no matter what I do, at least for me personally, I never feel satisfied unless I'm actually close to God. So, and I think the main differences that I've noticed in my life and what He can do for you is you feel like you have somebody that will look after you and protect you and your whole life. So like say if I'm ever walking like on a dark street at midnight, or if I'm ever in a very bad situation, or say for some reason if I'm ever driving extremely fast and making a sharp turn, knowing that obviously I'm trying not to make stupid decisions, but knowing that I have God on my side, I just have that confidence no matter what's going to happen, I'm going to be okay. And the other thing, I have the confidence to know that if I make a wrong decision, or if I do something bad, it's going to end up being used for good in my life. So I think that's what God has done for me, and that's what God can do for you too. Knowing that you have somebody that's always going to protect you and look after you, and knowing that every single decision you make and everything that happens to you in your life, even if it's extremely negative, it's always going to be used for positive with God.
And I want to touch on two things that each one of you said. Like Sam said that it's not, like life is not going to be all sunshine and rainbows when you have God in your life, because God purposely puts you through things to have you learn. And I feel like that's what a lot of people that don't believe in God or aren't Christian, they don't understand that, because they say, if God is so good as you so claim Him to be, why does He let all these bad things happen to us and to other people around the world? And you know that's another beauty of God. He created us with the ability to have free will. So He gave us that choice of whether we should follow Him and do the right thing, or do the wrong thing. And God is, it's like going back to the classroom idea. When somebody provides you with so much knowledge, it's up to you whether you gain that knowledge. And the way the teachers and professors gauge whether you receive that knowledge is through a test, right? Same thing with God. When God puts you through difficult times, it's like a test to see what you've learned, or maybe He's teaching you something through that difficult time.
I think it's actually the opposite. At least for me, when you become Christian, the battles get harder, and that's when they actually start coming at you. Have you noticed that too?
I think the spiritual battles become harder.
Yeah.
But I think the number one thing is whenever, say, right at first, I got like a ton of like hardships and hard spiritual battles thrown at me, and I didn't know how to deal with it. But because God did that, after like I dealt with it and got through it all,
deal with it now.
Now if something horrible happens to me, I think, and I'd be like, if this was a normal person, like they'd crumble right now. But for some reason, like I'm smiling as I'm praying. I'm literally smiling, and like I can't wait to I want to keep going through it, because I know at the end of the day, everything is going to be good because God is over there.
And then also too, how you said when you're in fearful situations, you feel so much better knowing you have God at your side. I could speak on that too. There's been many moments where I'm like terrified, and I'm like, what do I do, or how do I get myself out of the situation? And I just take, sometimes it's simple 30 seconds to pray to God, and it's difficult to explain, but like your whole emotions like just fade, and you just feel calm. Like, okay, like I know how to get through this now.
Yeah, we have the reassurance that He says, cast your sorrows, your stress, everything that you have onto me, because I will take care of it.
Yeah.
So it's like we don't have to deal with these things alone. So.
Yeah. So before I move on to the third thing, one thing I want to add, if you're not Christian and you're wondering, and you're still confused, you're wondering what is the benefits of going through all these battles and hard times, everybody's going to go through them in life, whether you're Christian, any other religion or not. But the thing with Christianity and having God on your side, if you go through them, they get extremely easier and you get extremely stronger. So He teaches you a lesson through them. So once you go through them, at a certain point in your life, you're going to reach a point where a lot of things can be thrown at you, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, a lot of bad things can be thrown at you, and you just stand there tall, smiling, knowing that everything's good is going to happen. So even if you feel bad, if you know that God is up there, you can't feel too bad. There's a certain point where you have to get to that you can't feel below that point, because you know at the end of the day everything's going to be good no matter what, and everything's going to change. So now brings me to my last point. what does it take to be a God-fearing man or woman? So basically, to elaborate on that question, what traits or characteristics are you able to see in a person to think, okay, that's a person that fears God, that's a person that I could respect, that has God number one in their life? We'll start with you.
I think that's why there's the fruits of the Spirit in the Bible, love, patience. I think even, in church, my pastor always says, even when you shake the hand of someone, you can tell when someone's like there with God or that they're following God. It's because even in their handshake and the way that they talk, the way that they carry themselves, you can tell that because they know love God's them, they have that love for other people. So I think that's one aspect too, where it's like you have this love for your neighbor, whether they do you wrong or you do them right, but you don't expect anything in return, because you're called to do good unto the world and to show other people that, that there's this God who loves me, who loves you, who loves us, and that even though we're going through whatever thing in our life, we're still able to have our head up high because we're confident in who we serve. And at the end of the day, you mentioned this, at the end of the day, we still have God to rely on. He's still going to be there by our side. It says it in the Bible, no matter where we run to, the mountains, the lowest point of the sea, He will be there. So going back to that question, is just having that love for others, even if it's a confusing love, even if to others it's like, how can you still love this person if they did you so dirty? And it's because if God was able to forgive them and if God is still loving them, then who am I as a person to not do the same,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say, to me, it's I think specifically aimed towards men. A lot of times I've been guilty of it. I'm pretty sure Anthony has too. He touched on it. He's like, where you think you're so smart and you're so tough that you can do these things alone. You feel like you have the knowledge to do these things alone, and that's
God
what
will
you
be
miss
very
out.
quick to humble you.
Yeah, He will, because it's been like, everything's going really good, and then you're like, but God, God's not with you, or you don't discuss this with God, or you're not doing it in a godly way, or like in a holy way, and everything changes. So it's like, you have to humble yourself down and realize that He is above us, but also He's here to help us. And you can never forget Him and think, like, I've learned enough from you already. I could do this on my own now. It's never like that. There's always things coming up in life. There's always things that change in life, and He has the power to change your life in a snap, to turn your life upside down. And that's evident in the story of Job, that he had multiple cattle. He was rich. He had a big family, and within a day, all of that turned bad. He had no house. He was on the street. But what stands out about him is that he stayed faithful throughout all of it. And I know that goes back to like the path, how it gets difficult. He's like, it gets more difficult, but having God there, he was happy. He was on the street, dirt poor, still smiling and laughing. And that's the beauty of it. You have a forever home with God, regardless of your situation.
Yeah, and to add to that, he kind of said a tiny bit of what I was going to say. With how I can tell that somebody has God in their life is how they react to situations. I know a lot of people let's do an example. Say you get a horrible grade or you fail a test, or say somebody breaks up with you and breaks your heart. Or another example would be you lost your job, you lost an opportunity. You can tell somebody has God in their life by the way that they react to it. Because if that happens to somebody and that has God in their life, and it's not that they don't care, but they're not that sad about it. They're not, the world's going to be over, because they know that eventually not only are they going to get through it, but they're going to come out stronger. And whatever they lost, the Bible says this, whatever you lose, you're going to get it back and more. So I think if somebody has that kind of reaction where they know that the world isn't over and they know that they're going to get through it, they're encouraging and inspiring, I think that's how you know they have God in your life. Well, I've seen a lot of people, when those things happen to them, they react in a way where they feel like their whole world is falling apart and that they're done, they can't do anything about it. if somebody has that type of reaction where they feel like it's over for them and there's nothing that they can do, that's how you know they don't have God in their life. Because if you don't, then it truly will be over until you find Him.
Yeah, amen. That brings us to our next topic. For any of you guys out there who believe in God or are not yet sure whether to dedicate your life to God, it's kind of difficult to know, like, oh, where do I start? Like, do I go to church? Do I do this? Do I do X, Y, Z? And honestly, it's not that hard. It just comes down to like realizing that and accepting that God is above you and God is providing for you and God did create you and He does love you. That's what it all comes down to. Because once you really get that instilled into your heart and into your mind, everything else kind of just falls into place. You slowly begin to associate with people that also believe in God, like us, like all the three of us have. And it also says in the Bible that when there's two in my name, I will be.
There's 2 or 3 in my name, I will be there.
And once you start accepting the fact that Jesus died for our sins and He's our only way to salvation, all that, everything just falls into place. You on your own want to start reading the Bible. You on your own want to start reading Scripture. You on your own want to start finding out more of who God is and what's the best way to please Him.
Okay, that's Samantha. What would you say the best place is to start for somebody who wants to find God for the first time?
I'd say having the faith that there is a God who loves you, who listens to you, and who's there at all times. And a simple prayer, it just takes a couple seconds, it takes a couple minutes to sit down, to go on your knees, to show that you're surrendered to Him, and to have, we have this direct line of communication with Him. We don't have to go to anyone else to be able to get to Him. We can directly go to Him, and that's a beautiful thing too. Not every belief or religion has that, but as Christians, we believe that we can just come directly to God, and God will listen to us. So I believe that if you do want to get closer to God, I think all it takes is a prayer, really. And from a prayer, God will listen to you, and everything will fall into place, whether it be someone hands you a church flyer and you start attending there, or a friend, you meet a new friend who is also a Christian. Things will just start falling into place if you start trusting Him and you let Him work, And sometimes, I think as Christians and as believers now, we confuse His quietness with His absence. And just because we may not hear from Him or we may not see Him, that doesn't mean that He's not there. It doesn't mean that He's not working. So that will also require patience. That teaches us patience, Just because we can't see something in action, that doesn't mean that He's absent.
Yeah. So for me, what I want to say, the first thing you should do is pray. I know a lot of Christians who started joining churches or joining communities, and because of that, they had a bad experience there. So that's what I want to talk about. And because they had a bad experience there, they think, God isn't with them or God isn't real. So if that's you, what you need to understand is those people in churches, or a lot of Christians are also not perfect. So they might do some things that are bad, and a lot of Christians are also lukewarm. So they're not taking it as seriously as you would think. So if you see other Christians out there that, are sinning, don't think that's everybody. And if you see other churches out there that you didn't feel invited maybe, or you didn't feel respected in there, that's also not every church. So I think the number one thing that you have to do is find God yourself. And you guys both said this. The only way to do that, I feel, is through prayer. So once you just pray, you can start 5 minutes a day. You can pray anything. Talk as if you're having a normal conversation with another person. So you do that 5 minutes a day, you increase it, and eventually God will reveal Himself to you, and you'll know when that happens.
Yeah, and that's another thing that people, I feel like, get confused or don't know how to do. Like, well, how do I pray? How do I start a prayer? It's like
you're
Anthony
talking
said,
to any
it's
person.
like talking to any person. Obviously, have that respect for him. But you can talk to him about anything, any questions, advice, something that went bad in your day. Anything is gonna please him. Anything, he's gonna accept everything. There's not a wrong or right way to talk to him.
I think that's a great place to end it right there.